1 Kings 16:15 is the text. And, of course, that means we'll be everywhere, including that. By way of introduction to the subject, though, what we've done is we're broken right into an ongoing story of the kings of the divided kingdom. And so if you're going to talk about one, it's always connected to more. So you got to back up, and if you're not careful, you start backing up until you get to 1st or 2nd Samuel, somewhere around in there. But I'll back up just a little ways to give you the idea of what we're talking about when we speak of this man named Zimri. In verse 8, 1 Kings 16, verse 8, it says, in the 26th year of Asa, king of Judah. Okay, so that's in the south, Judah. But he's talking about the kings of the north, but he's giving you a reference point. There was a king in the south. He says, began Elah, the son of Baasha, to reign over Israel in Tirzah 2 years. Okay, that was the capital of the northern kingdom, was not Samaria, as it soon will become, but originally it was this place, Tirzah. And so that's where a king would rule from. Verse 9. And his servant Zimri, captain of half his chariots, conspired against him, as he was in Tirzah, drinking himself drunk in the house of Arza, steward of his house in Tirzah. So the king is not always at the palace, just like the president is not always at Washington, D.C. Even when he's there, he's not all there. However, he'll leave someone in charge. Somebody's watching over things. That was this man's steward. The man's stewards, what was he said his name was? In the house of Arza. Arza. He's in charge while the king is away. But when the king gets there, he knows what the king wants. Obviously, the king wants to drink. That's what our verse says. He was drinking himself drunk. He wasn't just sampling it. He wasn't doing a wine tasting. He was doing a wine bibbing. He was imbibing. It says he was drinking himself drunk. Well, that opened him up, because now he becomes an easy target. Verse 10. And Zimri went in and smote him and killed him in the 27th year of Asa, king of Judah, and reigned in his stead. And it came to pass, when he began to reign, as soon as he sat on the throne, that he slew all the house of Baasha. He left him not one that pisseth against the wall, neither of his kinfolk nor his friends. That is, I'm going to eliminate all the competition. I got here by murder, but that's not enough. I'm now qualified. I've done the first murder. You know, that's what they do to get in gangs. If you want to join the gang, you got to go kill somebody. Need proof of it. And supposedly that makes you some tough guy. Yeah. Well, that's what's going on here. He killed in order to get his position. But then he got a taste for it. He said, now I'm going to kill everybody else that even looks toward the throne. Well, that you might think you're a tough guy, and you might be for a little while, but pretty soon somebody will show up that's bigger than you. And he's about to find this lesson out. Here's what happens 1 year later, verse 15. Verse 15. In the 27th year of Asa, king of Judah, did Zimri reign 7 days in Tirzah. How long? A 1 week wonder. That's as long as he got to hold the throne. Wow. And the people were encamped against Gibeon, which belongeth to the Philistines. And the people that were encamped heard say, Zimri hath conspired, and also hath slain the king. Wherefore all Israel made Omri, the captain of the host, king over Israel, the king over Israel that day in camp. That is, the military leader they had more confidence in than the 1 week wonder. And they said, he's a murderer. He shouldn't be on the throne anyway. We'll pick our own king. So they've decided they're going to be a democracy. You know, that's what Israel's problem was from the beginning. From the beginning, God ruled Israel through the Levites and the prophets and the priests. However, Israel as a nation said, no, we want to pick someone because the other heathens around us are doing that. So we want to fit in, you know. We can be on the world scene, you know, part of the market. And so they kicked God out. And then they have this one failed king after the next, after the next. Here, this guy, Omri, is going to come to the throne. Omri is a bad cat. Omri starts what becomes a snowball effect of wickedness. If you think back to the most wicked king in Israel, there's a few that'll come to mind. Who comes to mind? Ahab. Yeah, Ahab is the number one bad dude. Ahab had a predecessor, and it's Omri. Omri was his dad. And that's where it comes from. And I'll tell you another bad one that was before Omri is Jeroboam, the one who set up the golden calves and said, it's too much for you to go down to Jerusalem. I'll make worship convenient. If you live way up north, I've got a calf up there. If you're farther down south, I've got one down there too. Let's all, you know, we got a satellite church in both places. He probably had it piped in, you know, virtual worship. You worship in your pajamas.
Marcus Cat.
Yeah, right. All right, we got to get back to Bible. I'm commenting too much. Verse 18, or verse 17. And Omri went up from Gibeon, and all Israel with him, and they besieged Tirzah. And it came to pass, when Zimri saw that the city was taken, that he went into the palace of the king's house, and burnt the king's house over him with fire. What a way to commit suicide. Sets his house on fire. For his sins which he sinned in doing evil in the sight of the Lord, in walking in the way of Jeroboam, the one I was just talking about, and in his sins which he did, to make Israel to sin. Now the rest of the acts of Zimri and his treason that he wrought, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel? Yes, they are, because you said they are. Now that's our man we're going to talk about today. What happens is you've got a man who's worked sedition and treason in order to get the throne. It's going to set the tone for everything that follows. Even the man who comes up to kill him is going to be doing the same thing. And you'll find one after the next. It's a wicked king after wickedness, building and adding to their sins. And it all starts with, I think, Jeroboam. But it doesn't stop with Jeroboam. The golden calves are bad. That's bad. God always points that out. The sins of Jeroboam. He always refers you to that. But it never ends with the sins of Jeroboam. It always says, and he did worse than. They always do worse than. Sin doesn't stop. It's not content to plateau. And neither was this line here. All right, the first thing I'll notice in our text is in verse 15. Let's notice the character. The character of his executioner. He thought he had succeeded. He made it to the throne. Well, you better wait a week before you start celebrating. Verse 15. And in the 27th year of Asa, king of Judah, did Zimri reign 7 days in Tirzah. And the people were encamped against Gibeon, which belongeth to the Philistines. That is, there's a war going on. If you're going to be king, shouldn't you be worried about where your men are fighting? Not worried about picking a new fight so you could add a title to your uniform? That's what he's doing, though. He's out for number one, although number one doesn't last long. Rebellion multiplies, disguised by need. They need a king. We need a ruler. We need someone in charge that'll do the right thing. So he's going to say, well, there's a need there, and, my pockets need some filling too. So, so the two match right up, only he needed to carry a butcher knife in the back pocket to get it, and that's what he did. Now, the true answer would not have been go fight the Philistines, although the Philistines were wicked. But so is Israel at this time. The northern kingdoms were wicked themselves. So there's no righteous team on the field. They're both wicked. You know what they both needed to do? They both needed to go down to Jerusalem. They should have returned to the city of David. Forget Tirzah. Forget Samaria. Those were not the places to be fighting over. However, God will let his enemies beat each other up. And they do regularly. Now, I think that might be an amusement game. We have chess and checkers and things like that we do. That might be heaven's amusement. A board game for heaven. Let the enemies duke it out. Yeah, right. Enemies of God soon become enemies of everyone else. If you have friends that are wicked, hang on, give it a week. They won't be friends long. They'll find something they don't like about you. There's no common ground because it's all selfish to begin with. Sinners unite in a pursuit of social justice until it's not convenient for them. You ever notice that? We're all for this or that until we don't like it. If you push it to the extreme, then, we're not there. They'll set the party up, but as long as it goes along with what interests them, if we'd all get on the same page, it'd be all right. Find out what interests God. But sinners have to default to the lowest common denominator, stupidity. They don't realize the sword of the Almighty is waiting to wage war. We are the ones supposed to be holding at bay God levying punishment on this wicked world. If it wasn't for us, it would be tribulation. We talked about it this morning in Sunday school, 2 Timothy 2. It's all about when we're gone, then the wicked one is revealed, but not until then. So we're holding at bay the wickedness of the devil, or we should be. But the problem becomes Israel in the north was supposed to be representatives of God. They were supposed to be God's children, but they sure weren't acting like it. Well, then there's nothing holding at bay the wrath of God, and it's about to fall. Notice the enemies in verse 16. Verse 16, and the people that were encamped heard say that Zimri hath conspired, and hath also slain the king, that would be Elah. Wherefore all Israel made Omri, the captain of the host, king over Israel that day in the camp. Elah, that was the second son, or the son of Baasha. The son of Baasha's name was Elah. So you had a family of two on the throne, a two-rung dynasty. And then after that, it's cut off. And you see this, it's going to be one or two sons, and then they chop it off. Somebody else takes the throne. Now, here's the thing that is, they don't even realize the mess they're in because there is no royal family. God has to declare a family royal in order for the seed to continue. Otherwise, it's every man for himself. And that's what goes on up north, is they all have to kill each other in order to claim the throne, and then say, I'm going to set my family up until a bigger one comes along and kills that one. And it's dominoes. And that's the way they did it. Look at Proverbs chapter 5. Proverbs 5 will be in verse 22. Proverbs 5, verse 22. While you're turning there, I'll give you a recap of the history of the kings. There was once a king in Israel called Elah. He reigned over Israel in Tirzah 2 years. He had a servant named Zimri, the man we're speaking of, who was a captain of his chariots. Zimri was a born traitor. You'll find people like that. Seems like they have a great wisdom in how to accomplish wicked things. Well, that's a fact. You know, the devil is pretty wise. He's been at this game for over 2,000 years, over 4,000 years, 6,000 years. So he's pretty wise at it. And he's got some people, he's got some people who have sold themselves to him. Just like we should sell out for God. The devil's got some that have sold out for him. And they'll be especially good at certain wicked things. And that Zimri, he was a treacherous man. His treachery was very bloodthirsty. In the case of Eli, Zimri had a marked advantage, for Eli was a drunken fool. It was in the habit of visiting the place where he could get the most booze. You'll find all through history, booze has never helped anybody. If a man is so weak to say, I've got to have this that takes me out of the world's reality, then he's open to be stabbed in the back. Now, you had better be sure of your friends, their friends, and all of their bodyguards if you're going to lose your mind. And that's exactly what he did. He went in and says he drunk himself drunken. That is, the alcohol became even more alcoholic. And then he sucked down some of that. And not only was his brain gone, but soon his throne as well. These are the facts that we deal with today. Zimri is not dead. In our day and age, you'll find him on any corner. Neither is Eli. And Tirzah can be as close as the next bar down the road. It's all around us. You know what it is? It's a church. It attracts the attendance of anyone who's worshiping convenience. You know, it's not convenient to deal with life's issues. Life gets hard. I'm sorry, that's not a fun message, but that's a practical one. Life gets hard. So you do something about it. You either get to work, you find somebody you can depend on, you go get a loan, or you go get some drugs, or you go get drunk. And that's what these guys were doing. They were escaping the realities of hardship. You know, God uses the realities of hardship. It's supposed to drive you to the creator of the universe. And then he can take care of all this mess, not an alcohol bottle. But this guy's committing suicide before he even realizes it. Now, he is going to burn the house down over his head, but before that, he lit the bottle. He's taking a Molotov cocktail. Bad news. Strong drink will ruin any man if he'll give in to it. But it's not just strong drink. It's any duty you shirk. The second you can begin to shirk a duty, you have created a leak in character. Character does not remain character. It doesn't remain intact without work. Right. This week I had a slice in my tire. And so it didn't look bad, and it wasn't a puncture. It was just a little slice. But it was just enough to let a little air out. And I had to go get a new tire. Of course, I'm rich, so I go down there and get the used tire. That's all I need. It was already a used tire. Let me have another one. Yeah, they got them for cheap, and it good tread on it, so I wasn't complaining. But that's what happens in a man's character. One little slice in your character, and it won't be long before you have no character at all. For some men, it's the bottle. For some, it's pleasure. Some men, everybody has a different idea of what pleasure is. The modern generations say that pleasure is a little TV screen. Whether you put it in your pocket or you set it on a desk, and you've got to be sucked into that thing 24/7. Yeah, that's right. It can control everything. Same thing alcohol does. It sucks everything. You know, man is designed to be a slave. I know that's not a popular message. I'm just popular today. Man's designed to be a slave. You're going to be a slave to something. Pick a good master.
Amen. Amen.
Proverbs 5, look at verse 22.
Yeah.
Proverbs 5, verse 22. His own iniquities shall take the wicked himself, and he shall be holden with the cords of his sin. Sin has strings attached. Oh, they'll promise you liberty at the price of bondage. And that you take your place next to Samson on the wheel to grind their corn, just like an animal. Be careful. Sin is a liar. Every time a man starts down the road, he has to think, is this righteous or is it wicked? I mean, make it that cut and dry. Is it righteous or is it wicked to go in there with Garza and get drunk? That would have stopped the whole program altogether. Maybe he would have lasted 8 days instead of 7. However, the leaking character had sprung another leak. And soon he's going to be so out of his mind that he says, I'll just burn the whole thing down. And that's what he does. Notice this violent opposition, verse 17. Verse 17. Violence is not the answer. And Omri went up from Gibeon, and all Israel with him, and they besieged Tirzah. That is, they're going to get their man if they have to starve him out. Now, obviously, it was not only alcohol that this man lived for, but it was food as well. In 1 week, he couldn't go 1 week without food. He's sitting in a palace. You mean to tell me there wasn't any food in the palace? I guess in 4 days he had eaten it all up, and he said, they're going to kill me anyway. I might as well burn my house down. That's where he is. Look at verse 21. Then were the people of Israel divided into 2 parts. Half the people followed Tibni, the son of Ginath, to make him king, and half followed Omri. Sinners are fickle. In verse 17, how many were following Omri? All Israel. Verse 21, half and half. That's it. Not half and half you put in your coffee. I've always said they shouldn't call it half and half. I know how to do math. That's whole. That's 1 whole. That's whole milk. It's not half and half. Say half milk. You can say half milk. Where if you're going to say whole milk, it's half and half. You know, that equals something. Here the people have divided. Somebody said, hey, look, I'm not so sure that we've made the right choice here. When it came to just doing violence, they were all on board. Yeah, Omri's got a big stick and he wants to go up there and beat somebody. Let's join the party. But then it was, well, it's anybody. It's sinners. Then it was, hey, he's going to sit down and start making rules. Let's see who the best candidate to tell us what to do is. Correct? It's always a battle. I want the one that's best for me. Then you start seeing the party ain't as compact as you thought it was. Violence is the devil's job. He says in Genesis 6, the world was filled with, or the earth was filled with violence through them.
That's right.
Satanic influence. That's why I think that violence is in all of the things that the kids have been attracted to as pleasure. Get them hooked on it. Even though they're not physically doing violence. It would probably be better for them to do physical violence than to sit on a computer. If they would get out there and learn to box, they'd get hit a few times and they would get a respect for this. It hurts when you can't just kill somebody 12 times. You don't get to reboot. But the devil's behind that wickedness and violence. Look at Proverbs 1. Proverbs 1, verse 10. He says, "My son, if sinners entice thee, consent thou not." Now, we read that and we think, okay, somebody's asked them, hey, you want to come party with us or come join our club, whatever. It may not be so innocent. The enticing might be with a gun. Come join the party. That's happened throughout history too. Look down at verse 11. If they say, come with us, let us lay wait for blood. That's what it is. The life of the flesh is where? In the blood. So, if they can take away your blood, they can take away your life. Let us lurk privately for the innocent without cause. Why don't they go after their own kind? That's it. They've got to go after somebody that's innocent. Because they're already tainted, they want to bring everyone down to their level. Verse 12. Let us swallow them up alive as the grave, and whole as those that go down to the pit. Sounds like they know where their future is headed. Verse 14. Cast in thy lot among us. Let us have one purse. I did talk about it. My son, walk not thou in the way with them. Refrain thy foot from their path. For their feet run to evil and make haste to shed blood. Surely in vain the net is spread in the sight of any bird. That's exactly what all the video games are. It's not about killing just for the sake of killing. You've got to kill them fast. Isn't that what our verse said? Their feet make haste. Yeah. This is God's prophecy of what the entertainment in 2024 is going to be. Verse 18. And they lay wait for their own blood. They lurk privately for their own lives. Something satanic behind it. This wicked violence, we'll see, it's consumed one life after the next. When it moves to the next, it convinces the next guy you'll be able to make it. Everybody before you has died and gone and been trapped and had horrible demises, but yours won't. Baloney. 1 Kings 16, look at verse 18. 1 Kings 16, verse 18. He says, and it came to pass when Zimri saw that the city was taken. Great king. He can't even keep his own city. Where's his bodyguards? You know where they are. They're down there fighting the Philistines. His army he can't even depend on because now they've decided they're going to mutiny against the king. That he went into the palace of the king's house and burnt the king's house over him with fire and died. Burn it down on top of him. That's a bad way to go. But if that's a bad way to go, then most of humanity that's walking the streets today will end up going that way. There's a lake of fire waiting. Now, just because man's not seen it yet, he's already lit the fuse, and soon God stokes it up. Lake of fire is a literal punishment for the end. He got his a little soon. Could you imagine that, going from burning your house down to wind up in hell? This guy goes through 3 fires. His house, hell. One day hell's going to be cast into the lake of fire. That's bad news. Notice the evil notoriety of this phony success. Verse 20, 1 Kings 16:20. Now the rest of the acts of Zimri and the treason that he wrought, are they not written in the books of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel? They are. That's a fact. For time immemorial, now we all know what an idiot he was. The Bible tells us in Romans, no man lives to himself and no man dies to himself. I wish I could say you can make big mistakes and nobody will know it. We can cover it up. But no, it's probably going to last forever. You know, God's got some books he's writing in heaven right now. He says in Revelation 21 that the books were opened. Books plural. He's a bookkeeper. Be careful. You're responsible to how intact you keep your character. You may have started out well. So did Zimri. So did Tibni. So did all these kings who thought they had a great future ahead of them. But they had selfish means and goals in mind. In conclusion, look at verse 23. 1 Kings 16:23. Patton used to say, cowardice is epidemic. One coward will suddenly multiply. And soon there will be 3 and 4 cowards. And if you're not careful, there won't be an army left. They'll all be gone.
That's right.
As cowardice becomes epidemic, so sin becomes satanic. There is no safe sin. Name it. Whatever it is, it will multiply. It won't be content to stay on the level you think is okay or pleasurable. Let's review the kings. I'm just going to give them to you. I want you to do some math today. We're going to count them. These are the kings of the north. First one is Jeroboam. He's the one that puts the 2 golden calves up. The second one is, I'm not going to make you read all of the verses to find these. I'm just telling them to you. The second king is Nadab. That's the son of Jeroboam. The next one is Baasha. He's overthrown by Nadab. We're at 3 so far. Now we've got 4. Elah, the son of Baasha. Number 5, the man we just spoke of, Zimri. The end of Zimri, the one who takes over for Zimri is Omri. After Omri comes Ahab. Okay, the 6th one on the list is Omri, the conqueror of Zimri. 6. You know what 6 is?
Number of man.
Number of man. It's soon to be the number of the beast. 1 Kings 16, verse 23. In the 31st year of Asa, king of Judah, began Omri to reign over Israel. How long? 12 years. But then he forces you to do math. 6 years he reigned in Tirzah. How long was he king? 12 years. Minus 6 is 6. Why did he break it up into 6? Now we got 6th king reigning 6 years in one city and 6 in another. 6, 6, 6. Satanic. Look at verse 25. But Omri wrought evil in the eyes of the Lord and did worse than all that were before him. You mean to tell me he's worse than Jeroboam? I don't mean to tell you that. God did. God says, my opinion is this guy right here is worse than all of them that came before him. And there's some wicked ones that came before him. We've seen the murderers that came before him, one after the next. God says, no, there's something worse than that. Omri. Look at Micah 6. Micah 6. While we're using 6s, we'll go to verse 16. Micah 6, verse 16. He says, for the statutes of Omri are kept, and all the works of the house of Ahab, that's the son of Omri, and you walk in their counsel, that I should make thee a desolation, and the inhabitants thereof an hissing. Therefore ye shall bear the reproach of my people. God says what was going on right here is these men are responsible for forcing me to curse my people. That's iniquity. Iniquity is when you teach someone else to do something in the face of God that God must take action for because it's his character. God's not going to lose his character. Man may lose his, but God will remain true always. Look at 1 Kings 16, verse 30. 1 Kings 16:30. We've seen how horrible Omri was. Let's see what happens after him. 1 Kings 16, verse 30. And Ahab, the son of Omri, did evil in the sight of the Lord above all that were before him. Snowball. Maybe that snowball is a fireball. Look at verse 33. And Ahab made a grove, and Ahab did more to provoke the Lord God of Israel to anger than all the kings of Israel that were before him. So that's basically our message. That's the story of Zimri. Zimri's downfall is this. He thought he could have what he wanted and enjoy it along the way. Isn't that the message of this world? You can get what you want and have fun while you do it. Baloney. You can get what God gives you and make him have pleasure, not you. Our job is to bring glory and honor to him, not me. Now, it's a simple fact. He's the creator of the universe, owns everything. If you're doing right and he's happy with you, he'll make you happy too. You don't have to worry about that. He's not an unjust God. However, your place on earth is not to be the center of the universe. Right. These kings couldn't figure it out. One after the next did wicked. And the wicked didn't end there. Soon, the real 666 is going to show up. And if the killing was bad in the Old Testament, it'll be nothing compared to what it's going to be when he gets here. Heads will roll, literally. Now, for us as Christians, we don't have to worry about the wickedness that the devil can get to human flesh in. However, for us, we can be worse because we can show the lost world it doesn't matter. That's bad. Could you imagine that? We get to the judgment, and you know you're supposed to judge at the white throne judgment. You'll be judges there too. Paul says, what? Know you not that we shall judge angels? Okay, so we'll get to the judgment there, and the lost man will come before us, and he'll point his finger and say, well, he didn't think it was important. And I figured if, he claimed to be a Christian, he was doing the same wickedness I was doing, it wasn't any big deal. I don't think that's going to go over real well. We got something to answer for too. Okay, don't be a Zimri, but in neither case, don't be an Omri either, or else you'll end up as an Ahab. All right, that's our message.